Welcome to Read This Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria, and I am so excited to have with me today author Rodney Freeman Jr., the author of Daddy Let's Play, Little Rodney the Librarian, and the producer of the documentary, Are You a Librarian? The Untold Stories of Black Librarians. Welcome, Rodney. Welcome, Rodney. It's so wonderful to have you on Read This. I'm so excited to talk about your children's book, as well as I really want us to jump into what you're doing with this documentary, because I want people to know it's coming out and what it's about. But before we get into all your projects, I would love for you to just share a little bit about who you are.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me on your program. And I really do appreciate this opportunity to sit and talk to you about the books and the documentary. And the books was both of the books. We have first one was Daddy Let's Play, and the second one was Rodney the Little Librarian. Both are dedicated to my kids. Daddy Let's Play, Mila, my daughter, who is 14 now. I wanted to have something where I could kind of like keep her as a 10-year-old. So writing that book about, when we used to play video games together was really just like a passion project. Little Rodney the Librarian was really intentional. I wanted it to be more, have more books about Black men in librarianship, and especially little boys being smart and being able to provide information. So that was really more intentional. And of course, that was dedicated to my son, who is now he'll be 3 in June. So yeah, both were dedicated to my kids, really passion projects. I think Little Rodney the Librarian, I definitely want to make sure that we have probably more books to come, having more adventures. I think I am working on a project right now where we're doing like a VR environment for Little Rodney the Librarian, so you can see his treehouse library and stuff like that. So I have a little bit more planned for Little Rodney the Librarian than I do for Daddy Let's Play, which was really just a one-off, wanting it to be able to memorialize my daughter. And but yeah, I love writing. I didn't really know that really until I was in Florida, and I was able to have time to write and, rewrite and everything. But I was really a kid that I was held back a grade, so I was really mindful about grammar and writing, and I didn't really think it fit me. I didn't know that my family had a long history with writing. My mom likes to write. She's written some books. My great aunt was a writer. She wrote poetry, and then she also had actually sold a song, and I found the contract to it. So I knew my family had some history with writing, and then I was really kind of lukewarm with it. But I when I got those books done, I was just like, you know what, I actually can do this. I think I can do that, and then that led me into the documentary.
Oh, that's way cool. I still say I'm a daddy's girl. My dad has passed away, but I was such a daddy's girl, and I would say not even to the bone, but to the marrow, straight to the marrow. So I always love when I hear and see daddy-daughter relationships, because especially within the Black community, there is this miscommunication that fathers aren't there and fathers and daughters don't have relationships. And I find that to be absolutely untrue, because I honestly find that it's 50-50 for me, with the people that I know. So whenever I could highlight that aspect, I love to highlight that, because the only way we shift the narrative is if we talk about that there is another narrative. So So it's
Right.
beautiful to see this book, a father memorializing his time with his little girl
Yeah.
in writing. So that's amazing, and I'm happy to know that little Rodney the librarian is going to have more adventures to
Thank you.
take the
Thank you.
kids on. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful. So let's start with your two books. Just well, you shared a little bit about the inspiration, but what what would you say you feel that people would take away or children would take away from your books?
Yeah. Before I answer that, I do want to touch on a point that you just said about Black fathers. A lot of people don't know that out of all the racial categories, Black fathers are more present than any other race. That was one of the stories and we could talk about this later, that I captured in the Black Male Archives. And I think a lot of people don't understand that Black fathers are very present. So I just want to make sure that I say that,
Well, yeah, let's make sure we talk about that because I I'm just tired of hearing the narrative that I
Mhm.
know is uh, not a true narrative, but
Right.
I understand how it has come to be
Yeah.
because just as a person that has grown up with a father, and sometimes when you go to talk about your relationship, it kind of gets misconstrued as
Hmm.
you bragging or you're showing off something that someone else doesn't have.
Yeah.
However, if I don't talk about it, then it automatically seems like it doesn't exist.
Right.
So I think that's where the conversation has gotten very skewed.
Yes. Yes, most definitely, most definitely, and that goes to the larger picture of just these our narratives, especially Black history and everything. We need to continue to talk about it,
Yeah.
even when people try to paint other narratives. We have to have, and I think that's why it's important that we have avenues where we're capturing these stories and holding on to them and passing them down and preserving them, and talking about them. Because like back in my time, Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show was a very important staple on TV because we didn't have internet like we have now, and the only modes that we got to see Black families was through TV. And Bill Cosby, the Cosby Show was very important. But I mean, you talk to generations now, it's almost they might not know about the Cosby Show or Different World or some of these others because
Right.
we take in information differently. So it is important that we continue to talk about the positive stuff, because we all know that the negative stuff is going to get out there. It's going to get talked about. It's going to get passed around and
Right.
circulated.
Because
Make sure, yeah, we need to make sure we talk about the positive.
I agree. There is a machine that's going to push the negativity out
Hmm.
there, but it takes a lot more work to
Yeah.
put the positivity out there. So share with me a little bit about what you would like the readers to get from the book Daddy Let's Play.
So Daddy Let's Play, it's really compact with a lot of there used to be this one movie that would come in and pop in and say message. It's a lot of messages in that book. We do talk about, one, the dad being present, the dad actually going to work and coming home and having this relationship with his daughter. You actually, to be honest with you, you don't really see the mom. You see the mom some, but it's majority of the story is about the father and the daughter, which I did that intentionally because, I wanted to make sure that people know that dads have relationships with their daughters, and they ebb and flow over time. If I were to write a book about my daughter now, it would be a lot different from that Daddy Let's Play. It might be Daddy Let's have a debate. Because I tell you, this little girl who's 14 now, she has her own thoughts, she has her own mind. So I have to be mindful. Like, hey, let's talk. It's really interesting, but we can talk about that another day. Yeah, Daddy Let's Play is just really a showing bond that they have with video games. One of the things that I wanted to make sure I did point out in the book, because during the time that I wrote it was right after, maybe a little bit after COVID, maybe during COVID, I can't really remember. But the Black Lives Matters, I make sure to highlight that and capture that in the book as well. And because the father is a community organizer, so he goes out and he's protesting, and he comes down with basically COVID, and he gets hospitalized, has to go to the hospital, and then of course, with a little bit of imagination, the little girl thinks that the dad is trapped in the video game, tries to bring him home. So I just want to have that story where it's something that you can talk about issues that are going on today or currently, and you can put them in, but you can also have a positive spin on it as well. At the same time, I think sometimes that's another thing that everybody sometimes feels like when we talk about our history, it's all doom and gloom, and I try to, even with the documentary and even with the books that I write, I'm like, there's positive stuff.
Yes.
We can really talk about, like, we have to talk about reality and we have to talk about the facts, but we can also talk about, it's how we talk about it, right?
Yes.
Showing that resilience and the overcoming, and the pioneers and inventors and all the good stuff. We can talk about that type of stuff too. So
because no matter how hard it gets, we still seem to find a way to laugh and be creative and put out new ideas, even if those new ideas are a way to protect and insulate ourselves or communicate with one another. We're just a creative people, and it shows. So that's a beautiful thing. But you said something, and I'm just going to put a bee in your bonnet, as they would say. It sounds like I hear another book. I heard something about Daddy, Let's Debate, because to me, no, it would be very interesting to see that transformation of this person into that person,
Yeah.
And the way you adapt to, and how the relationships adapts and changes. Interesting.
Yeah, I can tell you, I'm the first person to admit I am not perfect. I am far from it.
And none of us are.
I am far from it. I am not a perfect father, but I am very intentional. I will say that, and I made sure to be intentional because I felt like myself did not. I grew up with both of my parents in the house. Both of my parents are still together to this day. So I felt like that's what I wanted to give my daughter as well. However, that didn't happen. Me and her mother got divorced, and I had moved to Florida for a little bit, but I knew that I didn't want to be like a summertime dad either. So that's why I moved to Charlotte, because her mom was here, and I wanted to make sure that, even now we rotate weeks. So she's here one week, the next week she's with her mom, and we don't live too far apart, but I still wanted to make sure that she has both parents there for her. I feel like that's just my responsibility. So, but I mean, even now with her growing up and having her own opinions, I get things wrong. I am a person who, personalities. I think me and my daughter actually are more similar. so we bump heads a lot. But I think I make it known that I love her, and I make sure I tell her that I'm proud of her. Because I do. I think, I look back at my childhood, like I have a good relationship with my father. Not knocking him, but I think it was when I was 20 when he first told me he was proud of me. So, it's like, there's some differences that I see that I want to be kind of different from my parents too. But, it's trial and error, and it's growth, and being able to admit that, you don't know everything, even in everything. You got to relearn a lot of stuff. And if you think you know everything, then you're really gonna, I don't want to say doom yourself, but it's not going to put you in a good place,
Right.
to grow, and I think, when you think that, because you pull off, I grew up in the 90s with hip hop. I know this. I know what no, they don't like none of that stuff. So you got to relearn what they like. I'm surprised that she's so into Sonic the Hedgehog. And I'm like, Sonic the Hedgehog came out when I was a kid, but now it's this whole different generation likes it, but they like it for a different reason. And trying to relearn why they like it, Sonic the Hedgehog, even though you the one started with it. You the originator. but yeah, it's, I think that's what fatherhood is. That's what life is. That's what, and stepping out there, even, I hate to bring it back to the documentary that you see over here. But,
let's go to the documentary.
Yeah. I don't know about making a documentary. I didn't know the first thing, it was just, I didn't really want to be in a place to make a documentary. It was just a simple fact that this story was so powerful and had so much intertwined with history. I couldn't figure out why nobody was talking about it.
Okay, before we get too deep into the documentary, tell us the name of the documentary. Tell us, when should we be looking forward to seeing this?
Yeah. So I'm gonna put this out there. You probably won't see it until next year.
Okay.
It will be. We will have our first cut released in June this year. But that first cut is just so we can start doing screenings and getting feedback and retooling it. But hopefully, Lord willing and everything, we'll definitely get it out where the masses can see it next year and be able to view it. If everything, even if it comes before that, I'll be happy with that too. But we really want to make sure that we have the story straight. That's really important. I mean, we can find a whole bunch of B-roll and old photos and, I just want to make sure that this really does justice for Black librarians, because it is a big story to tell. And even within this 90-minute documentary, and we're still not going to do it justice.
Right.
What
is the name of the documentary?
It's Are You a Librarian? The Untold Story of Black Librarians.
Okay.
And we, it's so many stories to tell. So picking to choose what stories to tell and who gets to tell that part, it's very hard. We interviewed in person, just in person alone, 41 people. But we've interviewed in total for the whole project close to 125 people. From the pre-interviews to the in-person interviews to the YouTube channel interviews. We've interviewed a lot of people, and we knew that a 90-minute just cutting up sound bites was not going to do people justice. So that's one of the reasons why we have the YouTube channel. And that's one of the reasons why we're creating a database where people will be able to go in and view the entire interview with a
Oh, that's person. Excellent.
Yeah.
So just walk me through what you're hoping to have people take away from the documentary. What is the foundation of the documentary?
The foundation is the history. The history is two parts. History of Black librarianship, what Black librarians are doing today. I can sum it up in those two parts. And that's the importance. The historical piece is important because people don't know how many through lines Black libraries and Black librarians play within history, right? So we were just talking about TV. I can tell you something about Sesame Street, right? How many people know that there was a Black librarian that helped Sesame Street? Augustus Baker, that was her name, right? We can talk about, we can talk about how modern day libraries, public libraries are functioning as a community center, resource center. Mm-hmm. How many people know the founding person or, people who kind of started that wave back in the 1920s in Black libraries, Thomas Fountain Blue, right? The way that we search, and when we go into public libraries and we search through the Dewey Decimal System, a lot of people don't know that it was because of a Black librarian, Dorothy B. Porter, who expanded the card catalog system so we can be able to find Black people within that card catalog system because they weren't represented, and other things too. So, it's a lot of history there. Talk about freedom libraries. I can keep on throwing stuff out, but I mean, it's like, it's all this history, if you want to talk about MLK, and his Black librarian that helped him, we can talk about that. It's just a lot of history there that I want people to know about. And then I want people to see contemporary. What are we doing today, right? We have these librarians that are on social media. Like, we have some librarians who we interview who actually been on Netflix series. And we have some Black librarians who at the Time 100 Award, who used to be the former executive director of ALA. We have another Black librarian who, just made her transition last year, who was the librarian for Randall Robinson, who a lot of people don't know helped to free Nelson Mandela, and, her role that she played in that. And then also in the American Library Association. So
let me ask you a question. Can you explain to the audience what is a librarian? Because believe it or not, I think a lot of people might not understand or might have it a little twisted. So.
Oh yeah. And that is one of the things that we want to highlight. So a librarian really helps people find information and access information. That's the base. That's the bottom line. If you need information, we help you where to go, whether it's books, whether it's the internet, whether it's video, whatever, or it's helping you to figure things out, right? So there's a lot of libraries nowadays where you can take in gadgets and say, hey, how do you operate this? Or, hey, I don't have a VR headset. Can I use one? Or hey, I want to build a garden. Do you have the tools so I can check those out? So it's being able to provide resources, and that's basically what librarianship is. And of course, within librarianship, there's so many different things, right? I was a cataloger, which means that I like the way one of the interviewees that I had on my channel put it, the cataloger is the librarian's librarian, right? So we actually make sure that you're able to find all the information and put it in certain sections and everything. So that's where I kind of started out as a cataloger. And that's the reason why I built my databases as well. But yeah, that's basically what a librarian is.
And I see that you describe yourself as a librarian and an archivist. Mm-hmm. Can you explain what the difference is or how they connect? So
I'm not going to get into the technical aspects, but just say
layman's language.
Right. Archivists, basically, we're keepers of everything, right? Whether it's the physical copy, whether it's the digital copy, we quote unquote are the hoarders. I maybe I shouldn't say that word because I know if archivists are listening, I don't mean that you guys are hoarding anything. I just mean that we make sure that they get preserved, they get put into the right place, and people are able to find them. But yes, we do, archivists. I feel like myself, I do feel like I'm more of a digital archivist, just with the things that I do. But, I definitely make sure I preserve artifacts. I have family artifacts that I've been preserving and photographs. I have my four great grandfathers, like his cane. We have a clock that has been in our family for over 200 years. So I do and understand. I was doing that stuff beforehand, didn't really understand what it was until I got into librarianship. It was like, we've been doing this all this time. And Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so you realized you weren't a hoarder, you were actually an archivist.
Right. I was a collector, basically. And but that's a better word than a hoarder, right? You know, these Black collectors actually were the precursors to Black librarians. And, you know, when even we can talk about Arturo Schomburg. A lot of people don't know who he was, but Arturo Schomburg was a Black collector. And just sheerly just had that passion. Vivian G. Hart, she was a librarian, but she was also a Black collector as well in Chicago. But they had that passion, you know, to collect and preserve, to pass down to future generations. And that is one of the things that, you know, I want to, and we won't really be able to get all the way into this in the documentary. That's why we do the YouTube channel. But we invite people who are not quote unquote, you know, certified, you know, MLS library science degree librarian, but they have that passion and they're out there in the community doing that same type of work. So we invite them onto the YouTube channel. So we make sure we capture their stories as well.
Okay, well, excellent. This has been very informative because, again, I know it's kind of funny to say because there's so many things that I've learned on like late 50s, early 60s, still like, I'm like, oh my God, where was all this information?
Yep.
But I can't be too mad at myself because a lot of the stuff, because of the internet, it makes it available. Right. So I've been around long enough to be here before there was computers. So when you ask me, how did I not know? I could tell you because I wouldn't have even known where to start looking. But this has been so interesting, and I'm looking forward to the documentary, and I'm looking forward to Little Rodney the Librarian's other adventures, and maybe Daddy's little girl will get one more book.
Maybe.
So people could see what it feels like when you're really connected, when you are not as connected in one way, but you're still connected in other ways. Yeah. I think all of it is so informative to help people understand that there is more ways to connect. Yeah. Debating is connecting. You're sharpening her wit, you're sharpening her skills, because if she can debate with Dad and she can get her point across to you, who is that ultimate authoritarian in her life, then get a boss, a professor. She's on her game, girlfriend sharp, you know, like they gotta come correct because she's had practice.
Right. And you know, that's actually one of the things we were talking about. Just make sure, you know, she knows her facts and she knows how to verify those facts. And it's it's really interesting. So, but yeah.
My dad lived to be 95. And all my life, I can always say he was my BFF, you know. Yeah. Good times, bad times, was still my BFF.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So I'm just encouraging you, no matter what it looks like. Yeah. Once you're in, you're in, you know.
You're in, yep. Just got to go through it. Hang in there.
Is there anything that you like to share with the audience before we wrap up?
You know, I think I talked to you guys about some of my projects, the main project, but there are other ones, and just one of the big things with this documentary, which I know is it brings a lot of people in, but I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about is really, you know, the database that goes along with the documentary is important because, again, 90 minutes is not a lot of time. Mm-hmm. It's 90 minutes is going to be a bunch of sound bites that talk to themes and topics, but, you know, definitely want to encourage people to go and visit the actual database, which is it's called History's Playground. And History's Playground is where we're going to have all of our oral histories and interviews and everything like that. So, and then I encourage people to make sure that they preserve their own story and their family story, because it's really important to, preserve these local stories. It's nice to hear these, these national figures and everything, but it's also nice to be able to go to some communities and be like, well, who were the local heroes there? When I was living in West Palm, I got to hear about a couple, West Palm Beach in Florida. I got to hear about a couple of local heroes that, a lot of people knew about. And I didn't know their story, but once they started telling me, I was like, oh, wow, this could be a TV movie or something like that, So it's, I think it's on us to make sure that we preserve our history and our stories. And we, if we don't see anything from right now, we better make sure that we are the ones, capturing this and saving it and storing it and passing it down, because one day it's here, next day it's gone.
Yeah, well, if we look at, like, as I said, I came up through not having internet access and being able to see the stuff that I see now. But the people that have brought this stuff to life in present day, they had to really go deep and search to find all of this buried history that was intentionally hidden. Okay. So if we're not putting it out there, if we're not storing it, if we're not taking responsibility for it, and if our history only exists in institutions that can decide that they don't want to represent it anymore, then 100 years from now, or even 20 or 30 years from now, if somebody wants to find our history, it's going to be equally as difficult unless we make it hard. And I'm in the business, I'm going to make it hard because I want to document as much as we can, as much of the positive things that we've accomplished, that we do, that's out there. I want to make sure that it is seated deep enough where you cannot root it up that easily. So I am extremely passionate about that. And just something you said quickly, my dad is in a book. I grew up in Connecticut, and he came here from Jamaica in the 40s during the war, and he's in a book called Soldiers of the Soil, and it explains why, like, Connecticut is has the highest population of West Indians per capita in the United States, and how they migrated into the area to work in the tobacco fields. So it is, like you said, a lot of local stories that we can't afford to let die, because you look at the big shiny object over here where all the little pieces that really grew that made that shiny object possible. You don't know how they came into existence.
Exactly.
So I am so thankful to have been able to talk to you, and I appreciate your insight, and I would love to be able to talk to you again and just share, because I like your mind.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate you offering me this opportunity to talk with you, hearing your story. I'm like a sponge. I just want to be like, okay. I just want to hit record too. but yeah, this is awesome. Anytime, let me know. We can definitely chat it up again.
Excellent. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again. Until next time.
Thank you.
I would like to thank my special guest, Rodney Freeman Jr., for joining me today. Please go out and pick up a copy of his children's books, as well as look out for his documentary, Are You a Librarian? The Untold Stories of Black Librarians. And if you wish to support support this project, check out his GoFundMe. This has been Read This, Author's Corner. I am your host, Alice Maria. Keep reading, keep growing, and stay empowered.